Part 2 of BidPro Basics. First, before we get into part 2, I want to cover the estimate number one more time. So the estimate number that we typed in was for test villas. So I put in TE for test and VI for villas. Then I did 1x1 for one bedroom, one bathroom, and then I put a U behind the 1 to show that it was an upstairs unit. Now then, not all properties will have a difference between upstairs and downstairs. Majority of them do, but some of them don't. So if that's the case where the upstairs and the downstairs are identical, then you would just go TE VI 1x1 and then just leave that blank. You don't have to put anything in there. So I just wanted to cover that real quick. So let's go on to the next part of part 2, and that is going to be the order of how we're going to be putting in the lines when we're going to be inserting the product, the installation, and all of that. So the first part, you always put in carpet first, then pad, then carpet install, and then metals. Some branches bill for metals, and some branches don't bill their customers for metals. So make sure you get clarification from your market manager or director. So all of this is covered in chapter 16. You can see there is a section called adding lines, and you can see the line order. If you go to chapter 16, you'll see the exact way that we want you to fill out this part of the bid. But before we start inserting lines, let's go to this section here, and that's notes. Notes are very important because this is where all the cut notes are at. And so I always feel like you should type in the cut notes first, because if you start putting in your lines, next thing you know, you hit send, you send it to a customer, and then they order, and then customer support calls you, says, hey, there's no cut notes in here, what's going on? And you're freaking out because you got a job tomorrow. So make sure you do notes first, and that is all your cut notes. So let's go to it. So you click this button right here. At the bottom, it says notes. So click notes and then go to custom. Don't click any of the other ones. They're not for us. Click custom. And then the first line here, make sure you always have everything in caps. Make sure you have caps lock on. So it's 1x1, which stands for one bedroom, one bathroom, and then upstairs, because that is the style that we are doing right now. And so the next line would be your carpet cuts. Now, we will go over this in another video, a Measure Mobile video, how you get cuts out of Measure Mobile. So typically when you're doing a bid, you're going to have your Measure Mobile right next to you, and it will show you where all the cuts are, and then you're going to just transfer them over to BidPro. So the first note is going to be for carpet, so CPT, and then the first line is going to be an 18O, and that is for the living room, comma, and then 14O for the bedroom, comma, and then 4O for the hallway. And then hit enter and go right underneath to type in your vinyl cuts. So vinyl is VIN. And make sure when you're doing vinyl cuts that you always put in 12 or 6, that you started off with a 12 or a 6, and I'll show you why, or I'll tell you why. So vinyl comes in either 12-foot wide goods or it comes in 6-foot wide goods. Majority of our branches these days are stocking 12-foot wide goods, but just to confirm and make sure that customer support knows exactly what you're talking about and the installer knows what you're talking about, type in 12X and then your first cut. So the first cut is going to be a 14O, and that does the kitchen / dining room. Next one is going to be a 12 by 4O, and that does the utility. And the last one is a 12 by 5O, and that does the bathroom. So just to go over this one more time, I put a 12 in here because I want to make sure that the installer knows that it's going to be a 12-foot good product, and that customer support knows, that you know, all of that. So make sure you do that going forward. Carpet does not come in 6-foot goods. That's why there's no reason to put 12 in here, because everyone knows it comes in 12-foot goods. Commercial carpet does come in 13 just to cover that, but that's very, very, very rare. You really won't run into that too often. And even vinyl sometimes comes in 13, but it's, once again, very rare, case by case. This is the common, what you will be using. And then the next step underneath that would be cove base or quarter round or wood trim. Depending on the market, some markets use a lot of cove base, some markets use a lot of quarter round, some markets use nothing and they just caulk everywhere. I've seen it all. So we're going to do cove base for now because that's what we do a lot here in Portland. We do a lot of cove base, and so I want to make sure that I'm covering all of that. So the first section over here, or for cove base, I'll do CB. And I always like to split up the cove base per area. So right here, the kitchen and dining room calls for 25 feet of cove base. So I do kitchen / dining. The second area would be the utility, and that is going to use 15 feet of cove base. And the third area would be the bathroom, and that is going to use 20 feet. And then if you are currently doing metal in your branch, here in Portland, we do bill for metal. Some branches do and some don't. They come in 12-foot increments. So let's say there's 16 feet of metal going into an apartment. You have to bill for in 12, so it has to go 24 feet. We can't bill them for 16 because it comes in 12 feet. So even if they only use a foot of that other piece of metal, we have to bill them for the whole entire piece. That's how it is in Portland. Might not be like that in all markets for metal, because I think a lot of the installers provide it. So it just really depends. To make sure to get with your market manager or your director when it comes to metals. So metal, in this situation, they have 24 feet of metal for that particular unit. So you go down here, you click OK. Now all your notes will be saved. So that wraps up part 2. I'll come back with part 3 and we'll start inserting lines.